You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves cruise past Orlando for their third straight win. Final score tonight, 104-89. What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Jack Borman with me as always. Give him a follow at JRBorman13. Lots to get into tonight, Jack, including just another all-star performance from Anthony Edwards. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Game Time. Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so Wolves coming in, 2 straight wins, third game in 4 nights. So personally, I thought maybe they'd be, maybe a little tired, come a little sluggish perhaps against this is a scrappy Magic team, as we know, but that was anything but the case. Wolves win every single quarter from start to finish, got up as many as 24. They really never looked back after the first quarter was done. Randall with 23, that's a team high. Ant with 21. Naz Reid added 16. And the Wolves win their third straight, and they moved to 20-17 on the year. I like to start just big picture here first. Again, we've talked about this. Hot and cold team this year, but they clearly seem to figure something out with this new lineup. So how do we feel right now with just another game under our belt, bigger sample size with DDV in the starting lineup?
Yeah, I think it's really helped Ant more than anyone else. And that's not at all a knock on Mike Conley. And we'll get into how good Mike has been coming off the bench a little bit later. But I just think that Dante is a little bit more of an offensive threat, and that defenses know that it's tough to commit a second defender to Ant when Dante is one pass away, because he's quick enough to beat a wing or a bigger guard off the dribble and get to the rim if that second guy, that big, is trapping Ant. And then he also is obviously a tremendous catch and shoot 3-point shooter. So it's really forced defenses to play Ant a little bit more straight up, one-on-one in the pick and roll game. And that's allowed him to be able to become a little bit more active as a driver. And you saw him hit Rudy Gobert a couple of times. Ant would kind of drive and probe and then get into the short corner and hit Rudy when he was rolling, which was obviously nice to get Rudy involved in the game early as a roller against a guy like Goga Bitadze, who's not exactly known for his rim protection and his drop coverage defense against rolling bigs in the pick and roll game. So that was really good for Ant. And that was a huge reason why he had 7 assists tonight and was pretty efficient taking care of the ball. And he had 2 assists and had a few hockey assists as well. And then, a couple of passes for shots that just didn't drop like there are every night. But for Ant, he started 3 of 3 from the floor. All of them were threes, and then was just 2 of 16 for the rest of the game, and just 1 of 8 from 2. So only ended up with 21 points on 5 of 19 shooting. But man, that one shot that he made that was a 2 really got everyone going with a huge dunk over Anthony Black that I'm sure you've certainly seen on social media if you're here in the postcast or in the chat tonight.
Did you think he was going to get teed up after the flex?
When he kind of looked at him, he kind of took 2 steps.
He's gotten teed up for less. He's gotten teed up for a lot less.
He certainly has gotten teed up for less, yes. Yeah. And I think, personally, you should be able to do whatever you want short of physical contact after you dunk on a guy. I wish more refs would.
I think Black was smiling under his hair. I mean, he had the head down, but he might have been even, a little smirk there for a second, though, too, because he knew it. He knew he just got posterized.
Oh, he had a wide smile.
Anthony
Black totally
I couldn't tell from the angle. Yeah,
He was trying to get out of the way, and he just couldn't really get out of the way. And so I think that was certainly a tough one for him. No question about it. But again, he knows it's Anthony Edwards. So. But again, it was just part of a larger attempt for Ant to get downhill. Again, he was 0 of 7 on non-dunks in the after starting 3 of 3, which obviously is not great. But he did have 9 free throw attempts, so I think you also have to kind of consider that context as well. And he had 12 free throw attempts against Detroit en route to that 53-point game. But before that, he had only had 2 other games this season of having at least 9 free throw attempts in a game. So really good to see. And at least be able to create some contact and get to the free throw line where, I know he started out 0 of 2, but he did make his final 7 shots from the free throw line as part of a really shaky effort from the Wolves. They started 4 of 10 from the free throw line. but then went 20 of 21 for the remainder of, or actually, I think they started 4 of 11, and then they made their final 20 free throw attempts. So that was good to see after a really tough start.
Yeah,
but
Rudy started it all out. I think he missed his first 2, bang, bang. And you're thinking, no big deal. But then, when they started 4 of 11, you're thinking, oh, no, this is not great. And what at the time still looked like could be definitely a close game by the end. Let me just ask you this about Ant, because, first of all, they said it on the broadcast. Make sure you're voting for Ant for an all-star, okay? He has looked the part as of late. But what is different about him? Like this version of Ant, the guy's only 23. He's still learning. He's still growing, despite, how high the bar is set for him now. But, each team every year, and, every NBA team can say this each year, it's a little bit different, a little bit unique. They all got their own unique fingerprint, if you will. What is different about this version of Ant? And maybe even better in some areas, like getting downhill or whatever it may be, than maybe we haven't seen in years past. What is he maybe getting even better at this year?
Yeah, it's certainly been the 3-point shooting. I mean, he's really turned into, a version of like a souped up Steph Curry in terms of how many threes per game he's taking and the clip that he's knocking him down at. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm pretty sure he's still above 40% and shooting damn near 10 threes a game. I think
they said he's going to set the franchise record for most threes,
which is crazy considering
like this month.
Which is crazy considering that Carl is one of the best and most impactful 3-point shooters that's ever played, considering his size and just how efficient he was for such an extended period of time over his 10 years with the Wolves or 9 years with the Wolves, whatever it was. But again, I mean, he just was never able to get the volume up where I think everyone wanted it outside of that first season with Ryan Saunders when he averaged like 28 points a game. But again, for Ant, it's just the 3-point shot and the volume at which he's getting them up. I think too, that's probably been a huge reason why Ant's been able to play in all these games is I think the wear and tear on his body hasn't been quite as extreme. Like a game like tonight was pretty, add some wear and tear to your body when you're playing in the paint and falling on the ground a bunch and taking some contact on all these misses at the rim. And, there's just a lot of energy, I think, that can get drained out of you when you're consistently doing that over a bunch of games, again, like three times in 4 nights, but he looked good. And I think, him shooting more threes is probably going to be a way to preserve some of the energy that he'll certainly need through the home stretch here before we get to the All-Star break in about a month. So again, for him to maintain that energy is really important. And and I just think too, when he's shooting more threes, a lot of times he's not turning it over as much too, which is a huge key. And that was a huge positive for the Timberwolves tonight, that they really, I mean, if you don't count the shot clock violation that they ate on the final possession of the game, they had 9 turnovers, and Orlando only scored 11 points off of those 9 turnovers. That was the first time they've had less than 10 turnovers since that game right before Thanksgiving against the Celtics that they almost came back and won in Boston. And so really strong performance for the Timberwolves in that department. And I think,
was that your favorite team stat tonight? Because honestly, dude, I'm so glad you highlighted it in segment 1. Given how sloppy they've been in that department this season, I'm ecstatic anytime I can sit down and watch them stay in single digits in that category any night. Was that your favorite team stat? I know there's a lot to choose from. That's why I ask.
No question. I think for me, that's the most encouraging one. I think that's the biggest area that they need to improve if they want to become a better offense, because they're a team that doesn't play at a super fast pace. And so if you're turning the ball over a lot and you're not playing at a fast pace, you're just, a higher percentage of your possessions are going to end in turnovers. And that's fewer shots for guys like Ant or Randall or DiVincenzo or Naz Reid. And those guys can all fill it up. So anything you can do to not turn the ball over and just have possessions ending in shots rather than, possessions going the other way in transition or just throwing the ball out of bounds is really important for the Timberwolves too, to be able to build their momentum too. Right. Because I think we all know it's a dangerous defense and can really make a life and a night really difficult like they did for the Magic tonight. And it's a lot easier to do that when, you're able to get your defense set up on the other end when the other team's got to take the ball to the basket and kind of slow things down and help you gain a little bit of momentum. So that's really important for the Wolves too. And I think too, Michael pointed it out too in the chat here that Ant's been really strong playing defense too. And so even though maybe his shot wasn't there for the majority of the final 2.5, 3 quarters of this game, I thought that he did compete pretty well on that end of the floor and really kind of locked in on Contavious Caldwell-Pope and Caleb Houston after those two.
One more thing I want to just echo what you said. I think it was 2 nights ago, or I should say 2 games ago versus the Clippers when he put up 37 and he had 13 3-point attempts and 13 2-point attempts. So that balances well. Obviously, it all correlates getting to the line more, getting inside the paint, things like that. But to be able to have both, right? Both weapons, the Swiss Army knife, all these tools in his bag, for sure. It has been a lot of fun. Very, very fun to watch. Just his overall just arsenal of weapons grow over the last couple of years. And obviously, like you said, the 3-point game this year has really been the one thing that's really stepped up the most for sure. All right, don't go anywhere. Let's keep deep diving this one. Julius Randle's stock, I want to ask you about that. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, FanDuel is giving you a chance at a huge return, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. Why I love FanDuel, because when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get in on some NBA future action while you're there. Anthony Edwards MVP odds still sitting at 18-1. It's all sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Talk to me about Julius Randle tonight, because I know he had a clunker 2 games ago. That was versus the Clippers when the Wolves won by 2, 108-106. But Randle started that game, he had 5 points, so a little bit of a clunker not long ago. These past 2 victories, though, I feel like he's redeemed himself. He's been rock solid. And he, too, seems to be benefiting from the whole snowball effect as well with this new lineup, the bigger sample size we seem to get.
Yeah, no question. And I think, again, the more spacing that you can add around Randle and McDaniels and Gobert, and the better you're going to be to allow space for Ant and Julius to kind of be able to do their thing in isolation below the arc. And Julius again tonight, 23 points, 8 of 16 shooting, 10 rebounds, plus 13 in 31 minutes. He was as good as you could possibly ask for him to be tonight. I thought that he played all the right notes. I thought a lot of the isolations that he had was when he had good matchups, he was able to get physical. I thought more often than not when, the ball when he had to pick up his dribble, he did a good job of not forcing these really tough contested, fall away 2-point mid-range shots and did a much better job of kicking it out and just kind of relocating to open space after doing so and kind of evacuating the paint and allowing someone else to be able to fill that space pretty nicely. And that's just what he's got to do more. I think, again, just be decisive. If you're going to isolate, then isolate and be strong and try to go quick if you can. And if it's not there, I think you just got to try to limit the amount of possessions where you've got the ball in your hands for 10, 11 seconds. And it kind of prevents you from being able to get into anything else on that possession where you might be throwing a grenade to someone at the end of the shot clock that they have to put up. And that happened one time I can think of in the first half with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. But the fact that didn't happen more than that, at least that I can remember, is a great sign for him. And Julius only had 2 rebounds at halftime. And something I wrote down in my notes was that the Timberwolves needed one of Julius or Ant to really get going on the glass. And he certainly did that with 8 rebounds in the second half. So I thought that his physicality was really important in this game. And he also had some really strong defensive reps, I thought, against Tristan Da Silva, a rookie who is kind of
wait a minute. I'm sorry. It sounded like you said Julius had some strong defensive reps.
He did.
Right? I didn't know if you cut out. Okay. All right.
He did. And okay. Julius Randle is certainly a guy that can compete on the ball when he's playing defensively. I think when he sometimes can get a little too handsy defensively and a little too aggressive, kind of like we would see Cat sometimes, where he'd just make some boneheaded boneheaded fouls. But Randall, when he can go up against another guy that's super physical, that isn't going to blow by him, and he can just kind of absorb contact and keep guys away from the rim, or just force them to take tough shots, when there's ball handlers that he's going against that kind of want to, lower their shoulder and bang into him a little bit. I thought De Silva and Wendell Carter are two of those guys that are really good matchups for him to be able to go up against. And we saw it with Zion the other night. I thought the way that he competed against Zion was really strong. So two good defensive games in a row for my money from Randall has really been important too. And again, I think he kind of got the message of only getting 23 minutes against the Clippers and has had 35 and 31 the last couple of games, and has shot, 14 of 27 from the floor, and has been really efficient inside the arc, despite only 2 of 7 from 3. But, for him to be able to have 12 makes on 20 shots from inside the arc, that's certainly what you want from a guy like Randall. And I think Ant too in this game, if you kind of think about, a wide receiver that has maybe a huge touchdown on a really explosive play, or maybe only has 2 catches for like 75 yards and a touchdown or something like that, where you may stick out, and that may really kind of, stay in your mind of, oh, that guy had a really strong game. And maybe you thought that he had a stronger game than the numbers would indicate. That was kind of the case for Ant. And obviously that dunk was really important because the Wolves went on a 19-4 run from there and went up 22. I think that was a game high lead for them at that point. And so that was obviously a really loud bucket that was really important. But Julius Randle is just kind of like a running back, that gives you like 23 carries for 95 or 100 yards.
Those 4 yards per carry pretty consistently, right?
That just kind of keep the chains moving, keep the defense on the field, and kind of keep you in control of the game. And I thought that he certainly played that role tonight. And the more that you can kind of put the ball in his hands and not need Ant to do everything, obviously, is super important. And I thought that in the lineups that were good for him to do that, he took control and certainly did that tonight. And I think the more that those two can kind of learn to play off of one another, I think it's only going to get better. And unfortunately, Finchie is kind of doing everything he can to keep those two, not on the floor at the same time, so that you can maximize Ant's efficiency and impact when Randall's not on the floor, and vice versa. And so it's kind of a bummer that they have that relationship right now. But, that just may be where we're trending to with the trade deadline, in about a month or so. But, in the games that Randall's going to be here, and if he is here after the trade deadline, you certainly hope that you can get a performance like tonight or like we saw in New Orleans, because that was, really strong, impactful play from a guy that certainly is capable of driving winning and just needs to do it a little more often. But again, the other part too, like, when Randall's out there playing with a bench unit that's been playing as well as the Timberwolves bench unit has been, that's certainly helpful too. Again, this is a bench unit for Orlando that, despite losing all the talent that they've lost this season, has been really strong. They're fifth in bench scoring at 39 points a game. And, Wendell Carter and Jonathan Isaac, Anthony Black, and Jet Howard are all guys that are NBA rotation caliber players that are really, guys that Jamal Mosley feels comfortable playing, and for good reason, because those guys have been really important for them, regardless of who's been playing alongside them out on the bench. And so for the Wolves to outscore them 31-29, I think it was a little wider than that when I think it was probably something more like 27-22 or something like that when everybody when the coaches emptied the bench and the third stringers came in the game. But that was a big key for the Wolves. And then the other big one for me tonight, they had a very strong night on the offensive glass against a team that has been, a really good defensive rebounding team. The Magic are fifth in defensive rebound percentage at about 73%. And the Wolves had 14 offensive rebounds for 20 second chance points.
Huge. I mean, if turnovers was your favorite team stat, that's got to be close to second. Your second favorite?
It's my third.
Okay.
My third, behind 31 free throw attempts, is certainly a great number.
Yes.
For the Wolves getting physical and getting inside. But again, the front court for the Wolves, starting front court for the Wolves. Rudy had 12 rebounds. Randall had 10. And Jaden had 8.
Jaden with 8, man. That's right. So 30 boards between those three guys, but Jaden with 8 really pops out for sure, because you just don't see that a lot.
Yeah, and I think it was important for Jaden. Again, I think the more that the Timberwolves can get, more than one-dimensional impact from players, I think the better it's going to be. Again, Jaden missed 2 more wide open threes tonight, and it's been a bummer that his 3-point shooting, at least on wide open threes, has still been pretty poor throughout the whole season. I know he shot close to 40% December, but for him to still get to the free throw line 5 times, make all 5 of his free throws, and then secure 8 rebounds, that's just stuff we never really saw from Jaden last season when he didn't have it shooting the ball. So
it was kind of all or nothing. Either he's making those or it was pretty tough to watch. Yeah.
And for him to be able to find ways to stay in the game and remain impactful despite not making a lot of his 3-point shots right now, I think is really important. And he deserves credit, even though, his 3-point shooting has not been there.
All right, couple minutes left. I want to ask you about Mike Conley coming off the bench. Plus, let's talk about this Grizzlies game coming up. That's Saturday night, and that's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by BetterHelp. When your schedule gets packed with work projects and more, it's so easy to let your priorities start to slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy, they're more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, time to give BetterHelp a try, entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. So simple. All you got to do, fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, Mike Conley just continues to kind of thrive coming off the bench in this new role. How good was he tonight? What's been the secret sauce? And honestly, did you ever think things would look this good this early on so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that, I didn't really expect Mike's play to change all that much because I don't think Finch is really going to ask him to do anything that's a whole lot different, but it's not surprising to me that he has played a little bit better, considering that Dante DiVincenzo really thrived playing with that second unit that likes to play with a little bit more pace, probably has a little bit more spacing. So it's a little bit easier for him to get off clean looks and play in transition a little bit. And another thing for Mike, is obviously plus 23 in 23 minutes, team high tonight, which is great to see. But we've kind of heard throughout the course of the season that Mike Conley's 2-point shooting has really been down this year. And he's normally been a guy playing with Rudy Gobert in that pick and roll game that he's been able to kind of get into the mid range with not necessarily a pull up jump shot, but more with that floater, that little push shot that he can make with either hand. He's pretty ambidextrous. That's pretty rare for a guard to be able to make floaters with both hands, but he certainly can. He and Kyrie Irving are kind of the only two I can think of that do that rather consistently. And for Mike on 2-point field goals. So in October, he was 1 of 9, which is 11.1%. November, he was 8 of 25, 32%. December, he was 11 of 28, 39%. So that's, getting right near league average. And at least on floaters. And then 2-point shots as a whole, including tonight, I believe, what did he finish with? He was 2 of 5. Yeah. So this would be, I think he was 6 of 11, I believe, in January so far, 54.5%, which includes tonight.
So
and
every month, just keeps creeping up every month at these 2-point
playing
shots.
into it. Yeah. So, and then just since he's gone to the bench, he's 9 of 19 from the floor. He's 4 of 8 from 3, and he has an assist to turnover ratio of 11-3, which he'll certainly take. And for Mike, that might be a little low for Mike, frankly, but for anyone else, that's a great mark. And so for him to be able to really be effective, not necessarily only as kind of a conduit for the rest of the offense, but also as a scorer, I think has been huge. And he's had these individual quarters where he's been really strong. Again, tonight, I think he had 7 points in the second quarter, which was really important. He and Nas have kind of been a fun tandem that have played off of each other really, really well. So if they're not going to start together, I think you might as well find a way to get those two guys together on the bench lineup, which has been good for them. And then you mentioned it off the top, but the only other kind of miscellaneous note that I had tonight was that the Timberwolves won all 4 quarters, kind of. They technically lost the fourth quarter, but when the starters and all the rotation guys got pulled, they were winning the quarter. So
have they done that yet this year?
I don't know. I haven't
curious.
tracked it super closely. It's not something that's super readily available in terms of finding those numbers without writing some code and pulling it off the API. But they won the first quarter by 11 tonight. Their best first quarter in over a month since December 4th against the Clippers when they were plus 19. And it was just the fifth time all season that they've built a lead of at least 10 points after the first quarter. So it was nice that the bench wasn't asked to pull the starters out of a hole like right. They have so many different times this season.
Let me ask you this before we talk about this Grizzlies preview. Obviously, the last three games specifically, winners of 3 in a row, things feel like, right, the pressure's starting to melt off their shoulders a little bit. People are having fun again. Is there a loser in the equation after the snowball effect and everything else? Originally, people thought it was Mike Conley, but now he's thriving in that role. Maybe not specifically because of even the Conley DDV swap, but just like, is there some guy maybe out there right now, maybe like Nah, perhaps? I don't know, that's just kind of struggling or going through it right now despite the 3-game win streak?
Yeah, I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Josh Minot have both seen their minutes dip a little bit. I know Josh was sick and missed a game kind of when they made this kind of right around the time when they made this change. So you wonder if part of that is just the residual nature of being sick. But I also know that they normally got to that Nickeil, Dante, Minot, Randall, Reed lineup in the first quarter. Mm-hmm. But now because Mike and Dante have flipped, Dante is kind of playing the first 6 minutes and then Mike's playing the last 6 minutes. So they're not getting to that lineup until early in the second quarter. And it hasn't been as effective early in the second quarter when they don't have that little runway after the first quarter. And so I think because of that, Josh Minot hasn't played as much. So that's been a little bit of a bummer. But I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just maybe kind of ebbs and flows of a season, but Nickeil just hasn't had his best stuff the last couple of nights. He's still, 6 boards again, is competing really hard on the defensive end of the floor. So he's always going to have some value to you, but mm-hmm. His offense just hasn't quite been there. And I think some of the lineups that Finchie's been trying to go to have resulted in Nickeil having a little bit shorter spurts. And I think he's a guy that really likes having 2 longer spurts to play over the course of a game. And so his minutes being shortened a little bit by 3-4 minutes a game over the last few games here, I think is something to just kind of keep in the back of your mind is this a blip on the radar? Is shots just not falling for a couple of games, or is it something that we might see as a result of DiVincenzo pretty clearly being the guy that Finch is trying to work in as the guy who's getting the 5th most minutes now as a starter? So yeah, a lot of good stuff there for sure. Great breakdowns. Memphis Grizz on deck Saturday night. They're 3rd in the West right now behind Houston and OKC. What is most important? What are the Wolves doing well lately? Like the turnovers tonight, for example, getting to the line. You mentioned was your second favorite stat, and then offensive rebounding was your third favorite stat. But just in these last 3 games in general, what are they doing really well? And what is most important versus specifically the Memphis Grizzlies team? Yeah, I think most importantly for me is you've got to take care of the ball. I mean, Timberwolves fans who've been around for the last few years totally understand that the Grizzlies can turn you over pretty quickly and turn those into points in a hurry on the other end of the floor. So they're 5th in opponent turnover percentage at about 15.6%. They're 7th in the league in fast break points at 17 a game. In Memphis this season, they are 1-5 when they score fewer than 14 points off turnovers. They are 23-8 when they score 14 or more.
Wow!
And so tonight, Orlando only had 11, so they're going to need to repeat that performance. And especially now that Ja Morant's back, he's probably going to have some sort of a minutes restriction, I would imagine, because I'm looking at the box score now. It's basically the end of the third quarter right now, and he's played 21 minutes. So, obviously, probably don't expect him to play the entire fourth quarter. So that's something to keep in mind as well with Ja coming back from that shoulder injury. And then the other 2 points with Memphis is you got to rebound. They're 2nd offensive rebound percentage and second chance points. So you've got to find a way to get a body on Brandon Clark, and then Zach Edey, who is 6th in offensive rebounds per game, despite playing just 21 minutes per game. I know a lot of Hoops fans, if you watch any college basketball, that he's been a force inside
Purdue
for Purdue. several years.
You
So
busted my bracket when I picked Purdue to go all the way because Zach Edey, come on, man, nobody can stop him.
Hey, the 3-point ball, baby, can take you down.
Right.
And then the last thing, you've got to keep Memphis out of the paint. Ball contain and closeouts are really going to be key. I mean, between Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson, those are two guys that really are strong scoring inside in the paint. And this is a team that does not want to take mid-range jump shots whatsoever. Just 3.9% of their total points come from the mid-range, which is the second lowest percentage in the NBA.
3.94%, huh?
Yeah, really low. Super low.
Who's even lower than them?
I do not have that number for you
off
the top of my head. My script only spits out some league average numbers and where the opponent is for that game. But yeah, second in points in the paint, 57 a game, which is a huge number for them. So again, the Timberwolves have done a much better job recently of keeping their kind of opponents out of the paint. The Timberwolves are 12th, the Timberwolves this season are 12th in points in the paint defense, but they're 9th in the last 5 games. So they're kind of trending in the right direction, which has been good to see. And just one other quick note on Memphis. Obviously there's been some tough feelings between the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves after that playoff series we saw a few years ago where the Timberwolves blew a bunch of leads and were leading for like 80% of the minutes in that series. But they deserve a ton of credit. Ja Morant's missed 17 games. Marcus Smart's missed 19. Luke Kennard's missed 13. And so for guys like Jaren Jackson and Zach Edey, Desmond Bane, Jalen Wells, and Scottie Pippen Jr. Playing point guard for Ja Morant, all those guys have been great. And they're the only team in the NBA that has a top 5 offensive rating and a top 5 defensive rating. So for them
team. High floor
for them to
sure.
be able to do that, despite a lot of their guys missing a ton of games and having a ton of excuses, is a testament to how hard they play and how they do not care who they have, and that they just know they're going to go out and play their brand of basketball. And it's definitely something to respect that they play their brand and they go out and get guys that play their brand of basketball. So
you've been following this team a lot closer than I have for a lot longer, but I will say anytime we match up versus Jaren Jackson, man, you got to respect that guy. That guy will make you work and he's pesky, man. Jaren Jackson for sure. So especially with all those injuries, just knowing he's kind of somewhat had to shoulder a lot more of the load. That doesn't surprise me that they've stayed afloat for sure.
And can I close with a post-game quote we got from Ant?
Oh, what do we get?
Ant on his recent play. I'm balling like Spalding. Like the brand of the NBA basketball.
Of course, man. I love him. And you can just picture the big smile he's got to, man. Great stuff. You were balling like Spalding tonight. Wolves win their third in a row. Final versus the Magic, 104-89, 20-17 on the year. As always, huge shout out to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game. Make sure you make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. So close to 10,000 subscribers. Go follow Jack at JRBorman13. He's live from the Target Center almost every home game. Again, Grizzlies Saturday night tip-off, 7 p.m. Catch you right here. Same time, same place. But until then, signing out.